Welcome to the News First newsroom. Tonight we are going to be talking about this Act number 43 of 2011, revival of underperforming enterprises or underutilized assets. Through this act in 2011, 36 privately owned companies were taken over by the government. The people that opposed this bill are today in the government. Now, through the 2018 budget, Minister of Finance Mangala Samaraweera suggested something that would do away with this Underutilized Assets Act. The debate is now continuing in the mainstream. The first shot was fired by SLFP Member of Parliament, Minister Mahinda Amaraweera. Let's listen to what he had to say in Parliament today.
It was headlined in the papers that the Sevanagala Sugar Company will be returned. I do not think we can agree on that. I inquired from the Minister of Finance. There are items you cannot cover up in budget proposals. If there are any issues, they should be resolved. If there are mistakes in the order papers, those should be corrected. But any state-owned company cannot be handed over to a private owner. If a state-owned entity is to be operated by a private company, the handing over process should be done in a transparent manner. That is our stance. As ministers of the SLFP, it is not possible for us to object to such a decision within the cabinet.
Now that was the view of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party. What does the United National Party have to say about this? State Minister of Finance Eran Wickramaratne spoke to News First about this.
The act that was brought in by Mahinda Rajapaksa was completely wrong. It discourages investment.
Will this act release all the entities taken over by the previous government?
We will do it if we can. I do not know about that. We have asked the officers about the practical aspect of this report. Certain parts are covered by the law.
There is no review with regard to that.
No, that is there. Certain things are given to the Board of Investment if there are investors from the private sector. When things are done in a proper manner, certain people will try to interpret this in different ways. Here the policy frame is wrong. The policy is wrong.
Now, State Minister Eran Wickramaratne says that the policy is wrong. Now, among these 36 companies that were taken over in 2011, there were two companies. One in particular, the Sevanagala Sugar Company, which was previously owned by current Minister Daya Gamage. We have with us tonight Faraz Shaukat Ali, who wrote a brilliant devoted article in 2011 regarding the Sevanagala Sugar Factory and how it was initially given to Daya Gamage in 2002, if I'm correct.
That's right.
How did this transfer took place for us?
Well, they had a tender process, but sadly the technical evaluation committee of 5 people consisted of 3 people who were politically connected to the United National Party, and none of the members, either the 3 or the other 2, had any expertise in this industry.
Okay.
And certainly there were no members from the Sugarcane Research Centre. And during the bidding process, there were several offers, one that was much higher, but they didn't have a bid bond, and so they were knocked out, and the award was made to Daya Apparel Exports, in conjunction with a foreign company,
Which is owned by
which is connected to Minister Daya Gamage, and the final price which he bid and which it was awarded to him at was 550 million rupees.
Okay.
Now there was a problem with this. There was some controversy because the government valuer had placed a valuation of 1.2 billion rupees on the value of the Sevanagala Sugar Company. This was based on the fixed assets methodology of calculating the gain. However, the TEC, they actually resorted to the services of a private bank, and the valuation then came out at just 481 million rupees. Now, if you look at the fact that it was finally awarded at 550 million, this is a significant loss to the state. However, on top of all that, during this controversy, it emerged that the assets of this sugarcane factory, the Sevanagala Sugar Company, they had fixed deposits of 307 million, another 150 million in equipment, and also around 120 million in receivables from their suppliers and so on.
So does it mean that Dagamage profited out of this transfer?
Well, put it this way, Ramesh, they had assets worth 577 million rupees, right? And they paid 550 million.
Okay.
On the face of it, they would have profited by, they would have had an immediate gain of 27 million rupees. But if you consider the fact that the government valuer had valued this business at 1,200 million or 1.2 billion with a B, billion rupees, then the 550 million seems to be the deal of the century.
So it's another transaction similar to the bond scam that we are...
Yes, and I would aver that this transaction, because it happened so far back in time, actually perhaps surpasses the so-called bond gate scam.
Right. Another company that was taken over through this particular act is Selinco Leisures. Now, 3 separate companies were put in place to develop Selinco Leisure, and these 3 companies had a separate board of directors. Now, among these board of directors, there were 3 people in particular who were there in all 3 companies. There were Gamini Senrath, Neil Bandara Hapuhinna, and Piyadasa Kudabalage. Gamini Senrath, as you know, is the former chief of staff of President Mahinda Rajapaksa. Now, in order to develop Selinco Leisure, these people wanted money. And one of the projects that came under Selinco Leisure was the Hyatt Hotel in Kolpiti. They requested money for this, and there were 3 state institutions that came forward to provide funds for this project. They were the ETF, Litrogas, and Sri Lanka Insurance. ETF and Litrogas gave in 5 billion rupees each, while Sri Lanka Insurance gave in 8.5 billion rupees, a total investment of 18.5 billion rupees. Now, the ETF passed this money through the central bank under strict conditions. One of the conditions was that the ETF money cannot be transferred or used for any other purpose than the construction of the hotel in Kolpiti. However, the 3 persons involved in this board of directors transferred 4 billion rupees of this money to another project, that is the construction of a Hyatt Hotel in Hambantota. They did this without even before a board approval was given for this transfer as well. Now, after this transfer took place, the FCID launched investigations on the Public Property Act. As the investigations were going on, Gamini Senrath came before court and filed a petition and asked to stop the arrest. The magistrates court recently said that they cannot do this, and they allowed the investigations to go ahead. And eventually the FCID investigations led to warrants being issued against the 3 persons that I mentioned. Finally, Gamini Senrath and the 2 other persons surrendered to court, and then they were remanded until the 15th of this month. The lawyers appearing on behalf of Gamini Senrath and the 2 other suspects said, "Give us any bail conditions and we will agree to them." However, the Attorney General's Department, appearing on behalf of the FCID, rejected this, and now they are in remand custody. Now, there seems to be a pattern here. Back during 2011, under the tenure of President Mahinda Rajapaksa, it seemed that he was favouring his brothers and his relatives. Currently, under the good governance government, it seems like ministers are favouring their friends. This is public money that the government is playing around with. News First will keep you up to date with regard to all these transactions. We will have more tomorrow as well.